Hi, this is Melissa Humana-Paredes, and you're listening to Vibe 105.
Vibe Talks. Vibe Talks. More than just music.
Hey, everybody. This is Giancarlo, Aulino, and Zaretsky reporting for Vibe 105 with a Sports VIBEtalks segment where we're happy to be joined by our guest today. She is a beach volleyball player, and she represented Canada this past summer at the Olympics in Tokyo. She's also represented York U in the past. She is Melissa Humana-Paredes. How you doing, Melissa?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Just mentioning there, beach volleyball, you were representing Canada at the Olympics there in Tokyo. Just what was that experience like for you, especially after the Olympics were delayed from 2020?
I think it was a range of emotions. I think obviously immense amount of gratitude for everyone who allowed the games to go on. Especially all the Japanese volunteers and the Japanese Olympic Committee. They put in so much time, effort, and resources to allow the games to happen. So I think there was a sense of relief that we were finally there after a year of postponement and even talk of cancellations. While we were training, it was always just in the back of your mind. You're like, are we actually going to be able to do this thing? And so to be able to finally go through with it was, we're just really grateful and thankful that we had that opportunity. It's always an honor to represent Canada, but especially at the Olympic Games in such a high magnitude. That's a really special moment. But then also, it wasn't quite the same games that you always dreamed of as a kid, honestly, right? Because of COVID, there were a lot of restrictions. So it was a little bit more subdued than maybe what you saw on TV, and playing in front of, an empty stadium was bittersweet as well, because, we thrive off that energy. And so, and you really want the sport to shine and to have people witness it and be there in person. So definitely a range of emotions. But overall, always an honor being there and representing such an amazing country. And it was my first Olympic Games, not my last, hopefully, knock on wood. So, I think, just a lot to decompress on and to process for sure.
And so as you were competing, right, in the Olympics, obviously there were no fans in the stands, and you said you feed off that, but as the games are going on, did you feel that, did you have to start motivating yourself, or since you couldn't feed off the crowd?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't notice it that much. And I think it's more just the first few seconds where you walk into the stadium and, you kind of expect this roar when they introduce you. And then it's just, there's nobody in the stands, and the stands are so big, they're grand, they just go up, and there's so many seats there and there's nobody in them. I think that kind of hits you differently. But then once the game's going, really, at least for me and my team, we're just very in the moment. We're very focused, and we're not thinking about, oh no, there's nobody here cheering. It kind of makes you more dialed into being in the moment and to process each task and each skill that you should be doing and executing. So, after the first few minutes, you just kind of forget that the stands are empty. You just play. You're just there and you're focused. You're there to do a job. So ultimately, that's kind of what we train to do. And I think my team specifically, my partner and I think we're really good at self-motivating and feeding off each other for energy and creating that own energy ourselves. So I think, it wasn't as bad probably as it seemed in the media or something.
Okay. And just what was the experience like, though, being in Tokyo, having to go through all those COVID protocols, because I'm sure it was so strict, right? Getting there and leading up to your games. It was different. Yeah, it didn't really feel like the Olympic Games that we dreamed of, but we were all very prepared going into the Olympics, knowing what to expect. The Canadian Olympic Committee did a great job keeping us all aware and telling us, what the situation was going to look like and what the protocols were going to be. So there were no real surprises. I mean, every morning we had to spit in a tube, we get tested. We had a list of things. We had to fill out this app, check our temperature. We had a bunch of things we had to do every single day and every single morning. It just became part of the routine. It was kind of just, you got to check off a bunch of chores before you can get into, your routine and into your day and into your training. And unfortunately, one of the regulations is you couldn't really leave the village. So we were in such a beautiful country, in such a wild city like Tokyo, and you wanted to explore it, but you couldn't. And you couldn't see other venues, and you couldn't go watch or support other athletes or sports. So you were very much in your own bubble. So we were only in the village. We went to our venue and then back to the village. And, in our downtime, we just kind of wanted to stay a little bit secluded because you didn't really want to put yourself at risk or expose yourself to the potential of getting COVID. So yeah, it just kind of forced you to be a little bit of a hermit and really focused on what you were there to do. Which was difficult in itself, but yeah, I mean, a different experience, but again, very grateful for it.
With Melissa Humana-Paredes here on Vibe 105, Sports VIBEtalks segment. I'm Giancarlo Aulino and Aaron Zaretsky also here. And just you mentioned there about what the experience was like, the COVID protocols and getting tested. I remember even before that, there was even talk that maybe the Olympics would have been postponed again, maybe canceled because of all the cases that were coming up there. Is that where you were fearful of at that time? Like, did you think this Olympics was going to go through?
Yeah, I did. And I think you just had to either convince yourself or just you had to have that mindset while you're training. I think it can be really daunting and really difficult to go through training with those thoughts. And of course, you had to be realistic. Like there is the potential maybe that they're not going to go through. But I think everything that we were told, all the information we were given from, our national federation and the Olympic Committee, we were all very confident that they were going to go through. And, when you're training and you're training with a goal in mind. And so you can't really have that doubt in the back of your mind. So, you got to prepare if the games are going to happen, and if the games aren't going to happen, you prepare the same way. And that's just kind of what we were trying to emulate the whole time throughout the whole season. We were still lucky that we had a full season to be able to compete in leading up to the Olympics. A lot of other sports I know didn't have that luxury. So we feel very privileged to have that. We were still competing around the world and playing on our international tour. So we had that competition experience and things to kind of like give us things to work towards and give us little goals along the way. So I think that made it a little bit easier.
And also, like, what's a pathway like in beach volleyball? Because I know like other sports, there's like a minor league level, then maybe once they get up into the pros, but especially in beach volleyball where you are with the pairs and stuff, like what's a pathway to get to the professional level?
Yeah, well, we have our FIVB. That's our international federation. That's our international league. And so it's kind of like the NBA or the NHL of beach volleyball. And a typical season starts in March and goes until October-ish. And then we have our off season now, essentially. So to get there, you kind of do have to work your way up. There are different tiers of levels for kind of, the beginners, the future, the next generation. Then you have kind of like the intermediate levels, and then you have the professional level all on the FIVB circuit. And so once you're established, you kind of want to maintain and stay in that level, but you can drop down. And so it can be pretty cutthroat. And then in terms of the Olympics, like you have to be in the top, I believe it's 24 teams in the world to be able to go to the Olympics. So that process starts 2 years out from the Olympics, which is crazy because I feel like in terms of Paris, which is in 2024, it's not that far away. I feel like we just finished Tokyo and now we have Paris on our radar. So we have this upcoming summer to kind of get back into the groove, and then Olympic qualification starts the following summer. So it's right there. So we got to start with the preps for the next Olympics really short, which is pretty crazy.
This is Aaron Zaretsky and Giancarlo with Melissa Humana-Paredes on Vibe 105. Melissa, who or what is your inspiration in becoming a beach volleyball athlete?
It's a great question. I do have to say my family, specifically, I'm a first generation Canadian. My family immigrated from Chile during the dictatorship. And so they came to Canada to kind of like, have a better life for themselves and for their kids. And so I know that I wouldn't be here without them, and I wouldn't have these opportunities afforded to me without the sacrifices that they had to go through and gave up. And so I'm really aware of how lucky I am to have been born in this country. And that is thanks to my family. I have a pretty mixed family, and my dad actually played volleyball back in Chile on the national team. When he came to Canada, he continued. He actually coached at York University. He is a professor at York University, and he got into the beach volleyball game. He actually went to the Olympics as a coach himself for beach volleyball. So growing up, I was just always around the sport because of him, and my parents were always very, very supportive of whatever I chose. I ended up just falling in love with the sport. They didn't push it on me, but that's kind of how I got involved with the game, which a lot of people are like, how did you end up playing beach volleyball in Canada? It's a winter sport country. But that's kind of how I got it. I feel like I just, came out of the womb destined to play this sport. And I'm lucky that I've had the opportunities and the resources given to me, but I've also worked very hard for it. And I can't see myself doing anything else right now.
So just being around beach volleyball, right? So that was like the moment you would say when you decide, you know what, I want to be a beach volleyball athlete, turn pro, and make it as a career.
When was that moment?
Yeah, because being around, you said you were being around beach volleyball sport with your family. So was that like the moment when you decided that you want to also be a beach volleyball athlete?
Yeah. I mean, I was just surrounded by the game at a very young age. I was in diapers and, on the beach and watching my dad coach and, seeing all these athletes play. And it was a very inviting environment. And I loved the family feel to it. It was very grassroots. And I was taken at a very early age. I started competing, I think, when I was 12, and then competing for Canada when I was 15. And I knew, at a decently young age that I wanted to pursue this as far as I could and really take it to the next level. I wanted to become a professional athlete. I, of course, wanted to represent Canada at the Olympics. I think that's every athlete's dream. I knew pretty early on. My path wasn't completely linear, but it was definitely top of mind throughout, high school and university and even middle school.
And also just mentioning that, at a young age, you knew you wanted to be in it. When was the age where you realized wow, you know what, I'm actually really good at this and I'm starting to get offers to go to a university? When did the recruiting all start?
Yeah. So, again, I mentioned I represented Canada when I was 15. I went to my very first international event. It was the Under-19 World Championships. They were in Turkey. And at that time, my partner and I, we were, one of the top teams in Canada. That's why we earned the right to go represent Canada internationally. And so, you feel good when you're in Canada and you're like, oh yeah, we're the Canadian champs or whatever. And then you go international tournaments and you realize, oh my God, that we were at the bottom of the totem pole. We finished last in that tournament. And so it was that moment where I was like, oh wow, we have a lot of work to do. Even though back home, we can be successful internationally, there's a whole other game to this. There's another level that we have to try and get to. And so a few years later, I think it was 2 or 3 years later, my partner and I, we ended up actually being on the podium. We finished second at the Under-21 World Championships. And so I think it was that moment where I realized, oh, okay, we can compete at this level. Canada is on the map in beach volleyball, and, there is possibility to do this and to really make it. When you stand on the podium and when you have a medal, something to show, I think you start to believe in it. And then, you start to work for it and see yourself there and on podiums representing Canada, at the Olympics. You start visualizing all these things and you start setting different goals, and your expectations change and your standards change, and you kind of have to meet them along the way. So I think that's kind of when it started for me. I think the belief in yourself comes with experience and comes with just going through it all, failures and successes. If I didn't finish dead last in my first tournament, I probably wouldn't have finished second on the podium a few years later. I think that it all just makes you who you are and makes your journey the way it is.
And also, like, being at York, being a student athlete in the program there, what did you gain from that whole experience that led to you becoming this Olympian for Canada?
Yeah, honestly, my experiences at York University are still the best of my life. Like, I just have the best memories from my time there. Being a part of the York Lions family is something I cherish a lot. And it taught me a lot about, teamwork and community and, just like how to, practical skills like time management and prioritization, which I feel like I'm still learning, but it gave me a family that I have for the rest of my life. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think some of the experiences that I went through with the team and playing varsity and being a student athlete, they taught me so much about who I am as a person and what kind of athlete I am. And it made me a better both all-round athlete and person. And I think I owe the university and the program so much because, again, like, they were some of the best years of my life. And I think they really molded who I was. Those were formative years. When you're in university, you're trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. You're trying to figure out how to manage all this stuff. They're big life changes. And I think having structure by being a part of a team, having that community, having that support system, helping you get through it. And like knowing that there are other people going through what you might be going through and struggling and helping you out. I think that's so important to know that, you have people that want to see you succeed and that are there to help you. And all you have to do is just reach out and ask for it. And I think, yeah, I'm so grateful for those years and I'll never forget them. I think the hardest thing for me was having to not come back to the team in my last year because I knew that if I wanted to take beach volleyball seriously, I was going to have to commit fully to that to take it to the next level. And that was one of the hardest things that, I had to decide. And while I'm very grateful for that decision, it was really difficult to leave the team because, again, like we were such a close family, and those were like my sisters on that team.
So when you left the team to now start professional beach volleyball, right, you need a partner. So what was that process like? Like, were you told that, you're going to be with this person, or did you have a say in who you want to partner with?
Yeah, I think we're really lucky here in Canada. Our federation affords us the opportunity to be able to pick and choose who we want to play with. They obviously, will give you some input and, you can have discussions with them and they will give you their feedback. But in Canada, there aren't actually that many beach volleyball players. So you kind of know who's around. You know them quite well. And it's a small pool of people. If you look at, other countries, they might have a lot more people, but Canada in general, we don't have that big population. So I think you kind of get to know and get to choose who you want to play with and who you think you'd be a good fit. And it's kind of like a dating. It's kind of like a marriage. You see how you fit and you see if you can like continue to do this. And so I, throughout the years, I've had a few different partners and I've had the pleasure of being able to choose them and work well with them. So, yeah.
Very nice. And so have you, and also, right, like you won a world championship, right, 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, also be in the Olympics in Tokyo this past summer. Have you begun training for 2024 Summer Olympics?
Yeah, we have actually. So after the Olympics, we did take time off, and we had one final tournament called the World Tour Finals. They were in October. And so we kind of picked up shortly after the Olympics to prepare for this tournament, and only the top 8 teams in the world qualified for that event. And so we were one of those teams. And so it was like top of the top. It was like creme de la creme of the FIVB tour. Really high level. So we played in that. We finished second. We lost in the finals, which still hurts, but overall not a bad result. And so since then we've been in our off season, and this is typically the time where we take a step back from the game and take some time off of the sand and from the ball. And we really put a lot of work in the gym and try and strengthen and get a lot of power back to maintain us for the next season. So that's kind of the phase we're in right now. But
we're kind of like, we're going full steam ahead to Paris. Our schedule for our upcoming summer competition just got released yesterday. So we're now starting to plan which tournaments we're going to go to. We do have our World Championships again this coming summer. So that's kind of the highlight of the season. So we really want to perform well at that one. But I'm also kind of recovering from a couple nagging injuries. So this off season, I'm taking it a little bit slower, which is really hard for me to do, but I guess it's needed. And this would be the time to do it. So yeah, just kind of, trying to just like heal and get stronger and prepare ourselves for what's to come.
With Melissa Humana-Paredes here on Vibe 105 Sports VIBEtalks segment. And Melissa, just mentioning there, like, you're hoping to get to another Olympics. Just curious, in beach volleyball, what's a prime age? Because in other sports, it varies what the age is when usually an athlete you notice start to maybe tail off and retire, or maybe even longer than other sports. You see some sports where 40 years old, an athlete is still at the top of their game. So in your sport, what would you say the prime age would be?
It's a really good question. I definitely think beach volleyball is an older women's game with all respect. I think, it's meant for those who are a little bit more experienced, who are maybe more in tune with their body. It's also very forgiving on the body because we play in sand. It's not as damaging as maybe indoor volleyball is. So you can play this game for longer. So on average, you will see, people well into their 30s playing this sport. I think, if you look at the athletes, who just won a gold medal at the Olympics, they're close to, some of them are close to 40. So, I think it all just kind of depends on your body and also your mental state, because this is not an easy thing to do. Also, as females, you have to think about when you want to have a family. So that's kind of also something part that you have to consider as part of the factor, and part of the equation. So I would say, I'd say early to mid 30s is probably, prime, but you can play this game into your 40s if you want to. So I'm hoping to play this for a few more years. I'm 29 right now and definitely want to play in a couple more Olympics. So as long as my body lets me and I still love doing this and enjoy it, then I'll keep doing it for as long as I can.
That's great to hear. And especially now when you're in the Olympics too, especially this one, it was crazy for all the athletes. How did you deal with that mental toll that even the pandemic made the delay from 2020 to this year, but that mental toll from even stopping your preparation and training and now even getting back in your training to go to the Olympics? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, really difficult to process everything that went on the last, couple of years. I think for everybody, I think the pandemic isn't just, difficult for athletes. I think everyone struggled with it. And I think thankfully we do have resources that we're able to use. We have sports psychs and we have, our coaching staff and we have our federations and our teammates that we can talk through. But it was challenging. I think we did need to kind of be really adaptable and resilient. And I have to give kudos to my entire team being there for me and helping me through it, because it wasn't easy. We had to, I found myself training out of my living room for the Olympics, which I never thought that I would do. And you just kind of have to put things into perspective and take it day by day. I think that really helped me, was being very present in the moment and what I can control in that moment and on that day, and not trying to get too wrapped up about the future, because there was a long time where the future was so uncertain, and that can be really debilitating if you let it take over. But if you can just kind of pinpoint things on that day that you want to get done, I think that's the easiest way to get through each day to start accomplishing and reaching your goals, and not getting overwhelmed with, what could be a distraction and all the noise. And I think, talking to people, being honest and vulnerable about it is important. And then just focusing on what you can control.
This is Zaretsky and Giancarlo with Melissa Humana-Paredes here on Vibe 105. Melissa, how can listeners, viewers keep in touch with you on social media and just also to for beach volleyball in general?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I'm on social platforms. I'm on the TikTok. I'm not very good at it, but I'm on Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel. You can search my name. My name's super long and difficult. So, good luck to you to find my name, but Melissa Humana-Paredes. And I usually post about the journey and the behind the scenes. And,
the glamorous side and the not so glamorous side of what we do. And I'll let you know, when we're competing, where we're competing. We travel the world, and I know it does seem really glamorous, but there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. So if you want to follow along, like, please follow on social and stuff. But in terms of the sport, like, we have amazing ambassadors for the sport, like incredible athletes. And if you follow Beach Volleyball World or Volleyball World on Instagram, social media, we have a YouTube channel, or they have a YouTube channel rather, and they stream all of our tournaments and all of our games. So you can watch it basically for free on YouTube. But you can also sign up for subscriptions if you want more like behind the scenes. But it's I think it's all available. And I think what I really aim to do is to help grow the sport and to just get people aware. And so if you've ever been curious to watch, just like check it out on YouTube, follow some athletes on social media, see what it's about. I think the sport has so much potential that it hasn't untapped yet. And so hopefully this, gets people interested. And I think the Olympic Games is a really great platform for the sport to grow. I think every year or every 4 years at the Olympics, it's one of the most popular sports, in terms of viewership and in terms of seats and fans in seats, even though Tokyo there weren't any. But it's a very popular sport when it comes to the Olympics, and we just kind of want to carry that momentum to non-Olympic years as well, and just like support the sport, support the athletes all the time, not just around the Olympics, because this is our job, and it's also a really, really fun, beautiful sport to watch. It's great entertainment, and it's available year round. So definitely check them out and check us out and follow the sport. I think you'll fall in love with it the way I did.
For sure. Excellent. And hopefully, right, the accessibility for the sport can grow so that, it can inspire, more people to watch the sport, but also too, it can inspire, the next generation to become beach volleyball athletes.
100%. Yeah. I think we're really trying to get, younger generations, especially in Canada, involved with the sport. And I think it teaches you so many incredible skills, whether it's beach volleyball or any sport, really. I'm an advocate for encouraging, especially young girls, to get involved in sports. I think, it teaches you a lot about life and about yourself and builds character. So I highly recommend it.
Well, on that note, Melissa, we'd like to thank you for sharing your time and coming on here on Vibe 105, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks so much. I had a blast.
And now back to your Vibe 105.